Hey there, folks. Y'all back for another episode? Yeah, I know. I've been seeing, paying attention to how my stuff is spreading. And I know I marked myself as, being not for children or for adults, which gives it in most places the explicit label where it comes up. Um, I, I mean, I guess by the definition of how they use it, I'm explicit, but I just put that up there, like, I curse a lot. It's just me being me. I'm gonna drop a motherfucker, damn, a nigga, a lot. It just is what it is. And I just put that label on it. It's like one people like, hey, be careful if there's certain people don't play this out loud in your office or in your house. You don't need the kids hearing it. Unless you curse a lot at home, well, then this is perfectly fine for your children. And this is about to be an episode where I curse a lot. And let's just fucking get into it. The Women's National Basketball Association is at a goddamn crossroads, like, because that has a lot of shit going on. And I think like just so many pieces have just fallen into place all at the same time. Because all right, we're gonna start here. All right, this past weekend, has been our opening week of WNBA season, and all these excellently skilled young ladies and middle-aged women out there doing the goddamn thing as they normally do. But a few things came to the head. It's like the season is starting. I sort of don't even really know which thing to start with. But I'm gonna kick it off with. Well, you know what? I can start with one thing, then lead that into another thing, and mix up a whole bunch of things. I guess I don't know. Just fuck with me, man. Just fuck with me, all right? So things have been coming to a head, and you've seen a lot of players talk about it because as season starts, like in almost every sport, your preseason, off-season roster size is bigger than your season roster size. You got to cut things out. Like the NFL is like you go from total guys. I think you go from 90 to 100 guys. I think is allowed leading into your off-season programs. I got to get it down to 53 guys on the active roster, and I think it's at 15 guys, 10 to 15 guys on the practice squad. So you got to get it down. You got to go from 100 to under 70. So 30 guys getting cut. Same thing with the NBA. They have the off-season program and stuff like that. With the WNBA, things are coming to a head because it's sort of like if you've been watching women's basketball, either WNBA or the college, it's like you've been seeing like the game has been elevated. Like a lot of more very good players have been moving up the ranks, but things are coming to a head at this moment. Things are really coming to a head because these roster cuts, we're seeing just a whole bunch of talent just getting cut, especially good young talent. And it's like, because it happened so much happened this year that it's made people go back and look like at the history of the WNBA. Because like one thing we're finding out. Okay, let's just start off with like the big one that happened. The big one that happened was Crystal Dangerfield, Minnesota Lynx cutter, and which they also cut their first round pick from 2020 with Crystal Dangerfield and another from 2021 was their like ninth overall pick or just the first round pick. Okay, and the problem was becoming like you have 12 teams and only 12 active roster spots allotted for these extremely talented women. And to think that the person who won Rookie of the Year, literally just one season, like one, you have Rookie of the Year, Then she plays the season. Then the season after that, she's coming into getting cut. And Brianna Stewart's been talking about it. Shanae Gumake has been talking about it. And it's just either they need to expand or like get a developmental league. But the reason I'm saying like they're at a crossroads because like, hey, an overall scheme in the global scheme of women's basketball, the WNBA is sort of seeing like, how can I put it? Damn, it's like if you're a baseball fan, this is like, or an older baseball fan, you definitely know like the Havana League or like the current like Arizona leagues, where it's like those off-season leagues where like players go to get work in for like their main league, or like the NFL is like that flag football league that runs during the off season that the pros get into, to stay in shape and get work in. And it's like that's what the WNBA is for the most part. Isn't we try to think it's the main league because like a decent amount of the top women's basketball talent comes from America. And basketball, for all intents and purposes, is a North American sport between Canada and USA. This is where most of the talent is coming from, but on a major global stage, this is like the NBA Summer League, the WNBA. That's what it really is, and we're trying to prop it up as such. And it's really not. That's not what it is. Basketball is basically a wintertime sport, and they start like it's May. Like you're starting in the summer for what is a wintertime sport. That lets you know this is sort of like the off season sport. And it's like WNBA sort of at a crossroads. Like all this young talent's getting left off. I mean, like, okay, let me get it right. I think it's the Las Vegas Aces. I know it's them, but I think they traded away their first round pick next season in 2023 and like a second round pick in 2024, plus the pick they had this coming up season for this season. So they traded away two firsts and a second to move up and get two first round picks heading into this season. And both of those first round picks got cut from the roster just because there's so much of a talent crunch that there's no space for all these talented women to be in the league because it's so few teams and so few spots. And the reason I'm saying that across is because, like, unfortunately, and you got to pray for the people over there in Ukraine and Russia because there's a war going on. You have now what was the biggest league and biggest payday arena for women and women's basketball is now just fucked. It's gone. For those who are in the know or not in the know, since even before the WNBA existed, the Russian and Ukraine leagues were the places where women basketball players went because that's where the highest paydays were. I mean, I think it was probably like 2016 where articles came out like analyzing, WNBA pay or play versus like the global scale. And I think at that point in time, like the highest paid player was Candace Parker, and her salary was 150,000, which is the highest it could get. Meanwhile, in the European leagues across, not just in Russia, Ukraine, but in like every team in Europe that was considered a Euro League recognized team to be able to play for like the highest and biggest trophies over there to get the most money for your team, you had to make sure a minimum salary for all the women on your team was at least $100,000. And I think it may have been 100,000 euros actually. So even more, basically, basically the minimum salary to play overseas was the maximum salary that you could get in the U.S., which was a problem. And so, like, and I'm gonna get to Brittany Griner. I know, and I'm gonna have it on the icon, so I know y'all gonna know this is where it's gonna be going. You gonna see the big BG icon on there, and it's like the reason Brittany Griner over there, and not just her, most of the women in WNBA are over there, especially the All Star team players who do go play Euro are over there, and that's because I think Brianna Stewart, Brittany Griner, Sylvia Fowles, like these All Star team players, like their salaries when they're playing over there, like $1 to $2 million. So it's like you're making 10 times the money playing overseas than you can in America, and that's just like one of the things that's sort of like, hey, now this big monster where everybody wants to go has been taken down. So the WNBA has an opportunity to like be the league that gets all this talent. Like you need to expand. It needs to be an expansion. Like they just got $75 million in funds. You need to expand because like I'm looking at it right now just to make sure I have it right. So since the WNBA has started, 42% of the players drafted have never made a WNBA roster. And people thinking like, hey, what happens in most sports? A lot of people who get drafted don't make. Not to that extent. Not 42%. You're approaching like half the people who've ever gotten drafted have never appeared on a WNBA roster. That's not a problem of these people aren't good enough to play. That's a problem of you've put so few spots in such a small concentrated area. Like it's insane because like even if you look at the NBA, even if you're looking at second round draft picks, the amount of second round draft picks who eventually make a roster probably wouldn't have you at the point where it's like, 42% of those guys never play an NBA game. It's like, because even in certain articles, like, even like a first round pick from the initial, from like the early days of WNBA, like from 97 to 2000, like some of those first round draft picks had to wait 2 to 3 seasons to be allowed to make the roster. Just as it was such a crunch of so many, they just didn't expand. And it's a sad thing to see where it's like, so many top picks are just like not making the league. Like they just don't have room for them. And you're creating like what literally is on like the international level, like these crazy super teams. Like this would be like if you had the NBA All Star team on each roster almost damn near. And they just need to expand. Like you got this extra money, you need to expand. And the crazy thing, I was looking to the numbers a little bit when people have talked about it, and people basically say the WNBA loses $10 million a year. That's the most common thing everybody says. It's not a money making thing. It's a drain. No one can run it properly. I look into what the expenditures work out and revenue and yada yada yada. They're losing $10 million a year. Literally, that math works out to basically their loss for running the whole thing each year is literally just the total combined salary cap for the teams in the league. They are losing as much money as they pay the players. Which, if the WNBA went back to being, a subsidiary of the NBA, that's a decent tax write off. And I feel like we should move the WNBA to being sort of like how a lot of European soccer teams and athletic clubs and organizations for basketball are over there, where it's like, hey, each NBA team has a WNBA team. So everything is basically just propped up and integrated. So there's not a problem. Because I'm sure the WNBA could definitely grow if you had even more talent out there. So I'm thinking right now, it's like, Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers are on their way into the WNBA. Like, there's no doubt about it. If you watch women's college basketball this year, Paige Beckers of UConn and Caitlin Clark of the University of Iowa, they're on their way. And now you have to look at it in the sense of like, hey, these two are on their way. Which two first round draft picks are about to lose their spots basically because there's not enough room. Because you got to fit those two in, or maybe one of those two don't even make the team. Make a team, and it's like that's crazy to think about. It's crazy to think about that. 42% of players drafted never played a WNBA game. for one reason or another. Which the most reason is like, hey, there's not enough spots. We got too many. We got enough good players already. We don't got room for you. And it's just crazy. I'm trying to think in what other sport has a rookie of the year 2 seasons later not be on a single team in that sport, not due to injury, just due to being like, hey, oh, we have too much talent on the team. I mean, like, and the thing, Crystal Dangerfield is not a bad player, nor was she playing bad. This is not like in the NFL. This is not a Trent Richardson situation where you found out, oh, this person's ass is like, no, this person got drafted. Then we saw, oh, this person's good. Then it's like, yeah, we just don't got space for you, and it's crazy, especially when you look at the Russian Ukrainian thing and like, yo, there's a big gap being laid, and then Brittany Griner being over there and being detained also adds a little bit to the craziness because like, let's all remember like, or if you didn't remember, the only reason we found out Brittany Griner was detained, we found out basically 3 weeks after it happened, only because we have reporters at training camp for the WNBA teams, and they're counting all the players who are there for the Phoenix Mercury, and they're like, Brittany Griner's not here, so they try to look into, yo, where's Brittany Griner at? And that's when they found out, yo, she got arrested 3 weeks ago, and then we also found out the WNBA basically told all the players not to say anything to keep the shit under wraps to make sure all the players get out of the area first, and not say nothing about it. It was like, yo, this shit could have been out, and it's like just this past week, the I guess U.S. embassies or whatever was like, oh yeah, we 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 think Brittany Griner is wrongfully detained. It's like, bro, y'all damn near like 3 months too late with saying this, yo, and we know y'all just did a prisoner swap, and it's just crazy to think about this. Like, there's so many falling pieces going on. I'm just looking at it. It's like, yo, this is a time where it's like, yo, the WNBA has to nut up or shut up. Because, like, if they don't push things further now, all that's going to happen is like, yo, this league is just going to fall to the wayside. It's going to, like, you have to invest in this. I'm pretty sure the NBA owners should invest in this to make this grow. Because if not, this shit's going to fall by the wayside. It's it's gonna be it has to be an arms race between the WNBA and maybe the Spanish and British basketball leagues. Because I know the Spanish leagues, a lot of women players go there. They pay very well as well. And I just don't see this as being sustainable for the WNBA. Like, you got people getting drafted and be like, oh yeah, I got drafted. This is cool. This is great. I dreamed of this to play in the WNBA. Then it's like, well, we have a team full of nothing but the all star teams of the EuroLeague teams, and we just put them all in here. And yeah, there's not enough space for you. Sorry. It's just sort of like, yo, that's fucking nuts. That's not a sustainable league. It can't be. It never will be. And I just think this this might be the start of the downfall of WNBA because everybody saw it so vividly, so clearly. And if this continues as it is, it's a wrap. Shout out to Brittany Griner, man. Prayers up. Get her back home, man. The league ain't the same without her. I remember watching her in Baylor, just bossing up on women. Like, to think the WNBA didn't try to make moves to get back, probably the most impactful player to ever play in the league. Like, just look at it this way. As far as on the North American side, Brittany Griner accounts for 75% of all the times a woman has dunked in a regulation basketball game, either professional level or college level or high school level. That has been tracked and accounted for. 75% of that shit BG, the big homie, and they just left her out there to dry. Like no one fought for it, and now she's just sitting there in the middle of a war, and everybody's like, "Well, we don't want to provoke Russia." It's like, yo, at least you gotta get this one person home, like someone who's been the face of your league, the face of your sport, even before they made it to the league. Saddens me. It's disappointing, but that's all I got on this, man. Hopefully, if you listen to this, you're a college women's player in basketball, and you think you about to get drafted to the WNBA, and it's gonna be a good thing. Sorry to tell you, man. You can be the number one overall pick, you might not even make the fucking roster, just because they're running the shit show over there, man. David Stern, well, he's probably not rolling his grave. He might be, but Adam Silver, yo, knuckle up, handle this, bro. Handle this. Make it a place that's sustainable and make it mainstream TV and make it so they're not the off-season show. Make it so they're the main season show. Build this up better. These women deserve better, bro. They don't deserve this. And Ski Mask Murphy signing off, man. If you ain't got your ski mask on already, it's too late. During this brief intermission, I just wanted to remind all our listeners that we're available on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and we also have a Twitter account where you guys can interact with us and catch up with us, see our ideas on some things happening between our podcast episodes. Links will always be down in the description. And now back to the action.